Cam Newton was my Michael Vick. And if you look at the numbers, he was better than Michael Vick. But argument for another day. Michael Vick was arrested in 2007. I was 10 years old when he was arrested. So when he was running around the league doing his thing, winning MVP and on the cover of Madden, I was a wee tyke. So it didn't really hit me the way it did people a little bit older than me. I was a little too young. Even when I was watching the Vic 30 for 30, there was a lot of things that I was learning retroactively. What was it, 2 years ago when that 30 for 30 came out? I was a sophomore in college for Cam Newton's MVP year and a sophomore in high school for his Heisman year at Auburn. I didn't miss a game. I couldn't get enough. It was mesmerizing. You can do top 10 greatest, best players list, whatever. You'll be hard-pressed for me to find 5 players that were more fun to watch than Cam Newton when he was at the height of his powers. It was absolutely magical. I am the self-proclaimed president of the Black Quarterback Fan Club, and it started with Cam Newton being at a PWI, predominantly white institution for y'all that haven't heard the acronym before. During the Cam Newton run and getting into stupid arguments with my teammates and hearing the same black quarterback tropes, oh, Cam Newton can't throw. He's just a really big running back. Y'all know the ones. Meanwhile, he threw for 4,000 yards as a rookie, and his first game ever on the NFL field threw for 400 plus yards. And then the following year after Cam's MVP year was the Colin Kaepernick protest, and that just radicalized me completely. And I watched people cling on to the few flaws in their careers, like going to a Super Bowl and losing, watching them cape for quarterbacks who didn't accomplish half of what they have and try to convince me with my own 2 eyes that have watched all these players that they are better simply because they're not Cam and/or Colin. I talk about this every single week, how black quarterbacks are judged differently, how quickly their accomplishments are diminished. Just look at the last week of coverage of how a MVP, Heisman winner, national champion, and a guy that went to a Super Bowl was talked about like he's, I was going to say the name of a quarterback, but I'm trying to be respectful. No, I'm not. Like he's Nathan Peterman. Okay, so now for his actual comments. For y'all who somehow missed it, Cam Newton was on his podcast last week and called Brock Purdy, Tua Tagovailoa, Jared Goff, and Dak Prescott game managers and not game changers. And for 3 out of the 4, I agree with him. This statement would have been valid for Dak Prescott every year but this one. With the exception of last year where he threw a shit ton of picks, Dak's whole career, he has been a game manager plus. They came out this year and Mike McCarthy's plan was we're going to limit the turnovers, run the ball, and we're going to make Dak manage the game. That might be a direct quote. They couldn't get the run game going to start the year. They still can't get it going now, as you saw during the Bills game. And before that Bills game, Dak Prescott was on an MVP-like run because he's playing his ass off and changing the game. And as far as the other game managers, they are in systems that show if you manage the game correctly, you can put up astronomical numbers. We're no longer in the Trent Dilfer, Brad Johnson, or even Alex Smith, which is one of the best versions of this example, era of the game manager because of these Shanahan McVay-esque systems. And you know how I know it's a system? The Titans game. The moment that Tyreek Hill left that game, Tua looked a little different now, didn't he? Brock Purdy. When Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams missed a couple games, they lost 3 straight. And y'all were talking about benching him for Sam Darnold. I was there. Matter of fact, I was one of the people defending him. And then with Jared Goff, up until this last Saturday, everyone was talking about how Jared Goff has the same flaws he's always had. So objectively, he's right about 3 of the 4 of those things. And I don't know why we're acting like game managers, the N-word of quarterback words or whatever. You know who we all agree is a game manager and might be the poster child? Look in the dictionary and it's a picture of this man's face. Kirk Cousins. Would you like to know how his career is going? I'm going to stat y'all down real quick. Bear with me. Kirk Cousins is 24th all-time in career passing yards. He is 5th among active players. He is 20th all-time in passing touchdowns, 4th among active players. Throwing 12 seasons over $141 million, most of which have been fully guaranteed. Probably going to see another 50 to 100 million this offseason. Not say being a game manager doesn't sound too damn bad, now does it? But more importantly, the way Cam views game changers and game managers shouldn't be shocking to any of us. Every former player that we hear talk about the game views it through the eyes of their play style and in a way that elevates themselves in their eyes. This isn't a Cam thing. This isn't just a football thing. Hell, this isn't even a sports thing. You know how many back in my day ass people exist in the world? And for Cam Newton, he's never been asked to manage a game his entire life. Every single team that Cam Newton has ever been on, probably since Pop Warner, the entire construction of the team has been, Cam got it. Most people can't name a single player on that Auburn team that won the national championship, except maybe Nick Fairley because he spent 5 years in the league. You damn sure can't name nobody at Blinn College when he won a JUCO championship. And when he went to the Super Bowl with the Panthers his MVP year, he only had 1,000-yard receiver, and that was Greg Olsen, his tight end. So as far as the way he views game changers, of course he views it that way because he's had to be his game changer his whole damn life. And if we're going to be critical of Cam one place, that's kind of why he's out the league right now. Because right now, athletically, because of all the game changing he had to do, accumulating hits like a star running back, he's not in a place to do that game changing anymore. And if you want to bring in a backup, their job is to manage the game. That's not what you call Cam Newton for. He has no experience doing that. Okay, now I can get to the critics. Miss Kimberly Martin, can we please come to the front? First off, big fan, a lot of respect. They made Kimberly Martin the face of the anti-Cam critique, specifically awful announcing on Twitter. Made her the face of it. That was the one that got the most engagement. Meanwhile, all the analysts on TV made either her same points or worse, and they were able to skate scot-free, including the 3 other panelists that were on Get Up with her, having the same discussion. But we already know the vibes when it comes with that. Whenever it's attack a black woman o'clock, y'all are never late. Ever, ever, ever. But I digress. If I could offer a quick word of advice, not that you need it, Miss Martin, but I just feel like I got to throw my 2 cents in there since everybody's throwing their opinion out there. As a woman covering a male-dominated sport, and dominated might even be an understatement. There's 3 female coaches, 4 female referees maybe, and there's never been a woman player in the NFL ever. I wouldn't recommend going the route of trying to discredit a former player. Just me personally, I just don't think that's the best route for you to take. Because of level of play is the qualifier that we're going on, you have 0 leg to stand on. Because not only you, no woman ever has ever played in the NFL. And that's partially why I've always thought the whole you never played so you can't talk about this discussion is stupid. Out of the many reasons I'll get to in a second, that's very high to the top of the list. So we're just going to straight up say no woman can talk about football ever because there's been no woman in the NFL. But since we're on the subject of the discrediting game, I'm going to do just a quick exercise for you guys, right? Because this all started because it was common trope. It wasn't just Kimberly Martin again. Common trope that Cam Newton was not a good enough quarterback at this current moment to critique the 4 quarterbacks that he called game managers, even though none of those 4 are as accomplished as Cam Newton, by the way. But sure, for the sake of the exercise, I will accept this premise that Cam Newton does not meet the minimum requirements to have this discussion. If that is the case, then there's not a single quarterback analyst on TV that can have this discussion either, because none of them are as accomplished as Cam Newton except maybe Kurt Warner. Depends on how much you value the ring compared to the rest of their careers. Because if you ask me which of the 2 I would want for my quarterback, I'm going Cam Newton personally. And before you say Troy Aikman or the Mannings, they're not analysts, they're announcers. It's different. I could go name by name and start listing them off, but my man Channing Crowder from the Pivot Podcast already did that, and y'all know exactly who I'm talking about. Whoever you're picturing right now when I said this quarterback isn't qualified enough to have this conversation because they're not as good as Cam Newton, yes, them on TV, yes, him. I mean, hell, just a couple weeks ago when Tom Brady talked about how the league is watered down and the quality of football isn't as good, which he's been proven right every single game since, by the way, y'all try to tell him he don't know what the hell he's talking about. And if Tom Brady can't talk about football, then all of us shut the fuck up. We should disconnect every podcast mic, shut down all the channels, ESPN, Fox Sports 1, shut down YouTube, Twitter, shut it all down. If Tom Brady, the most accomplished football player ever, can't talk about football, none of us can. It's done. No more. So let's take it off Cam for a second. Let's just do straight up played football. Okay. What level? Pop Warner? High school? JV? Varsity? College? What level? D1? D2? D3? NAIA, JUCO, club. You made it to the NFL. Can you be a practice squad player? How many years is the requirement? 1, 2, 3, 4, 10? Do I have to make a Pro Bowl? Do I have to make it all pro? How many? Do I have to make the Hall of Fame? Do you see how dumb this gets? Do you see how we just keep moving the goalposts over and over and over again until none of this shit makes sense at the end of the day? So instead of attacking the person and trying to disqualify their opinion, how about we attack the point? And the truth is, most of you are not equipped to do so. Straight up. And this isn't just sports. This is why political discourse is the way it is. This is why social media is the way it is in general. Because most of you are not armed with the intelligence or the communication skills that will make you capable of combating these actual points and having intellectual discourse. So instead you resort to personal insults like a fucking 5-year-old. All right. Last point on Cam, because I'm sick of hearing this one too. I kept hearing that Cam isn't humble enough to be a backup quarterback. I will counter that by asking you, what star quarterback this century ended their career as a backup? Tom Brady didn't. Peyton Manning didn't. Ben Roethlisberger didn't. Drew Brees didn't. Phillip Rivers didn't. Shit, Eli Manning got the coach fired because they benched him. I can keep going, but you get my point. This is what happens when you keep just regurgitating bullshit narratives that you hear without ever having a single critical thought for yourself. You just hear because you already think Cam's cocky and he's so full of himself and he needs to be humble. You're just like, oh yeah, of course he isn't humble enough to be backup. Motherfucker, nobody is. Nobody goes from multiple All-Pros, Super Bowl, Pro Bowl MVP to, okay, I'll just hold a clipboard for this guy that isn't nearly as good as I was at my peak. No one's doing that. Nobody.